Hello, and welcome to the Flickering Torch, and on today's episode we're going to be doing ginnydi's D&D tag in one of the few episodes of the Flickering Torch, shot in the middle of the day. So there's this trend going around called the D&D tag that was started by massive famous YouTuber ginnydi, a link to a channel there, or if YouTube allows that anymore, who knows, they change annotations every 5 minutes. And essentially, it's 15 questions that you're supposed to have answers to about your D&D experience with the D&D characters. Now, I mostly play other games, so I'm generalizing this more to all games instead of just D&D, because to me, I have more experience with other games than I have with D&D. So we'll jump into it with question 1. What was your first D&D character? And my first D&D character was one thing that I think every GM tries out, but quickly learns is a bad idea, and that was an NPC player character, where I, as the GM, had a player character that went on the adventure. And this was a Red Dragon Ranger called Sargal Kriv, who was basically just kind of like an edgelord. Would like go around, he was always the guy with like his hood up in the tavern, but obviously I, as the GM, like got him into the story. I didn't do the whole, oh, nobody approaches me kind of thing. So yeah, he was my first character, and I think I killed him off pretty quick because I realised there's no point GMing and running a player character at the same time. Question 2 is, what class is your least favourite / class you won't play? And for me this is going to be a controversial one, but I just never play a monk, and I never will play a monk, and I don't get the appeal of the monk. I never was really into martial arts movies that much. I like Jackie Chan and all of his kind of like buddy cop films. But yeah, no, like martial arts movies never really spoke to me. The monk being the player character class that's like martial arts movie never really appealed to me. So I've never played one, and I probably never will play one just because of that reason. For me, it's like sword and sorcery kind of hack and slash Conan-esque adventures, and the monk to me doesn't really fit that. That's not to say people can't have a great time having fun with the monk. I just don't play it. Number 3 is, which spell would you like in real life? And I think the obvious answer here is wish. But you need that like 800 or 600 gold piece diamond, which I just don't have access to in my real life. So I think the ones that would actually help me the most is probably Mage Hand. Like, just sat on the couch, like Mage Hand the remote to me, or like when you're cooking in the kitchen, you don't have to like go across the kitchen to grab your ingredients, or you could have it like cooking as you're like sauteing or something. Like, I think Mage Hand's one of those spells that has so much utility that I would use it if I had it. It's not like a fireball or something where it's like, I would never use it, so what's the point? Like, I think Mage Hand's one of those things where you definitely have a lot of utility in your real life to use it. Number 4, favourite D&D monster. And mine would have to be the Owl Bear, because it's an owl and a bear combined, and you think it's going to be this like cute, adorable, fluffy thing, and then it kills your whole party, and you're like, I thought I put this in as a bit of a joke, but no, owlbears, they'll mess up your whole day, they'll mess up your whole week. I just think it's a really cool, weird concept and something that's like unique to D&D, so that's probably my favourite D&D monster. Maybe my favourite would also maybe be the Beholder, because I think it's just so iconic and cool, and like such a weird old school design. This thing looks like one big eye with a bunch of eyes coming off of it. I quite like the thought of, but no, I think the Owlbear, just for pure, it's like, it's got everything. It can be adorable, it can be deadly, it's an owl, it's a bear, what more do you want? Now, my favourite NPC or villain I've created, I'm going to go with one that I kind of created in a sense, but is more like I'll just explain who it is. Okay, so in Night's Black Agents, our first season, someone shows up called Mr. Wild, and this is a name and a job title taken from King in Yellow, the original book by Robert W. Chambers, which is like a collection of short stories, and I believe the first one in there is The Repair of Reparations, which is this character called Mr. Wild, who's this like super weird guy, but he only shows up, I think, in that first story. And he's just this like kind of weird entity who like gets people's reputations repaired or something. And he was just such like a weird character that I decided to use him in our Night's Black Agents game. I changed him slightly. I made him like this southern gentleman, and he's in the modern day now. I basically have made him like an immortal. And it's so fun to play him, because you get to put on the weird like southern accent, and you get to just basically like make the players very wary of this little old man who's just kind of like a little bit weird. He's clearly very powerful, and everyone around him acts like he's very powerful, but the player characters can't like just see it straight away. So I think, yeah, Mr. Wild, the repairer of reputations, in my Knights Black Agents game, the way I changed him, the way I get to play it, that's what makes him one of my favourite villains or NPCs that I've created. I kind of took that one fast and loose. So, number 6, how's one of your player characters died and how? A lot of mine die. I kind of like throwing them in at the deep end and seeing what happens. I think one of my favourite ones was Grim Ironhand, who was this like classic honor-bound dwarf who had to just kill everything. We'd found a Hydra, and it was very obviously we had to figure out like a clever way to kill the Hydra. But Grim being Grim, he was like so honor-bound that he had to just charge it in straight away, and ended up getting just devoured by this Hydra. I think we chopped like 1 or 2 heads off the thing, but yeah, no, Grim Grim died a noble death that his ancestors could be proud of. Number 7. Now, this original wording I think is best natural 20 moment. I've taken that and made it best critical success moment, mostly because, again, I play other games, and like the other games are kind of more in my brain when I'm thinking about critical success and critical failure. So my favourite one, I think, was in a very recent game of Forbidden Lands. I was playing the Champion class, which is in the expansion that just came out, and I was basically this Inquisitor-style character who was going around, like, he had like a holy smite thing he could do, which is really difficult in Forbidden Lands. And basically we'd come up against this town that had minotaurs as its like protectors. And the Minotaur's skin was shown to be so hard that like conventional weapons couldn't break it. A few dungeons back, we found these things called phase spiders that like phased in and out due to this like gland that they had. And I'd like cut out the gland for later use. And I was like, well, if it's their armor that's tough, if I've got phase spider oil on my sword, is it going to do the same thing? I asked this to the GM, like very, very late leading. I was like, so that phase spider gland that we've got, that allows objects to phase in and out of objects, right? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, it's only physical armor, right? It's not like, if I get through their guts, that's not going to stop. No, it's just their outskin. So if I put phase spider gland on my longsword and then cut this guy, that's gonna work. That's gonna kill him, right? And he was like, yeah, it would. That would beat the boss, yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm just gonna challenge him to formal combat then, because my character was supposed to be this like honor-bound sort of religious knight. And he was like, yeah, you could do that. Yeah, no, that'll work. So we get to this arena. I've pre-coated my sword in this gland and put it in the sheath. And as the combat's about to start and the announcer is about to like wave his hand down, it just starts chucking it down. And I'm like, so if I take my sword out, I'm gonna get like what, 1 good swing at this before all of the venom gets washed off by the rain? And he was like, yes you are. You're fighting these really difficult things. So I was like, okay, putting everything into this. I put all of my willpower that I could into the holy smite. He stands there, the rain sort of pours down. We have this scene where I basically do like the samurai like where he like opens it a little and just waits for the guy to approach him. And this Minotaur approaches, and I get 1 good chance. And we know that I'm gonna die if I don't kill this thing in 1 hit. Every single d6 I rolled, and I must have rolled like 10 d6s, came up with a 6. So this guy stands there, does 1 good swing, just utterly obliterates this kind of mini-boss character, and then stands there and waits for it to attack, and the GM just describes this thing like collapsing over almost like onto my knight, and I'm like, oh, thought I was screwed for a second there. He was like, well, yeah, I tried the raid to try and make this guy more scary, but yeah, no, you killed him. So I think that's one of my favorite critical success stories. Again, the question was worded, what's your best natural 1 story, but I've changed this to be what's your favorite critical failure story. And this happened in the recent Blades in the Dark live stream that we're doing. Essentially, we went out to this kind of like ghost town area where all the spirits were like angry and haunting. And I had paid a man to make me Spirit Bane charm bullets. And I asked the GM as my devil's bargain to get an extra die. Basically, devil's bargain, you set yourself up with a bad consequence to the action, and it gives you an extra dice to roll. Even if that's a failure, the bad consequence happens, right? So I said to the GM, well, here's an idea. I did this. Can I roll for it when I fire? So I don't know if these work until I have to use them. And he was like, yeah, no, that's a great idea. So we loot this house, we get out the jewelry that we had, this like ancestral jewelry that we had to get out. We head on out, I'm holding the blunderbuss, and there's just scores and scores of these angry spirits just waiting. I'm holding my blunderbuss. I'm like, okay, I mean, it's now or never. We've got to scare at least one of these guys off. If they think we can hurt them, then they're going to run. Fire it, roll. 1-1-1. No, not 1-1-1. I was rolling really awfully for the past like 2 games as well. Got ones on all the dice, so that's a failure. I don't think there are actual critical failures in Blades in the Dark, but a failure. Fire it off as a normal bullet, just goes sailing past everyone, and then all the ghosts get really angry, and we have to figure out another way out as as my character just kind of stands there. Aldrich kind of stands there, looking confused at his bullets in his gun, and he's like, oh no. Thankfully, I did get revenge on the merchant that sold me the duff rounds. I did at the end of that episode. That was a really fun time. Number 9, what is the highest level you've ever achieved? I think around level 7. I usually stop around level 5 because I think that's where your characters get kind of like super powered, and I'm not really a fan of that style of play. So yeah, I think around level 7 is probably my highest character. Number 10, what is your favourite magic item? And for me, it has to be, if we're talking D&D, it has to be the Sunblade, because that is a lightsaber in Dungeons & Dragons, and that's just makes me smile. I've never actually been given one as a player. I don't really play D&D that much, so it kind of makes sense. But yeah, the Sunblade just being a lightsaber, I think is really cool. Because you can like conceal that on yourself, and then you just like pull it out any time. It does like radiant damage and cast light and stuff. So yeah, Sunblade, that's cool. Lightsaber and D&D, love that. 11 is your IRL alignment. Now everyone here wants to say chaotic good, but I'm not that versed to the lore or rules. And I would hope that everyone else would kind of describe me as neutral good. I'm not like a stickler for the rules, but like I don't just break them for the sake of breaking them, which is kind of how I feel like a chaotic character should be. So I would like to be neutral good. Number 12 is, if you had to choose a character to date, one of your characters to date, which would you choose? And the most romantic character I've ever played is a halfling bard called Arland Fig, who wrote these like great love ballads and went on this quest to find this woman he found in his dreams. And eventually, like, the way his story ended was I retired the character when he finally cured her of this, like, illness she was dying of, and they fell in love, and they had a wedding, and they sailed away. So I guess if he's my most romantic character, so I guess he would be the choice. 13 is a character you would like to play. So this is more of a character concept and not like a full character that I've got kind of, like, nailed down. I really want to play like an old man who has been a knight for years and years and years, and is seeking his last days of valor. I think that's a super interesting character, like a character who's already done a lot, but kind of hasn't progressed past the stage where he started, and he's just kind of looking to become a legend in his last years of life. I think that could be a really interesting and cool character to play, so that's probably my character I want to play. 14, are you a dice goblin or a dice minimalist? I am very well and truly on the dice goblins phase. I've got like jars of just D6s, jars of D20s. I've got like sets of dice up there. I've got the metal dice. I've got the crazy dwarven like runic Bayesian red dice. Love me some dice. Love me some dice. I'm still after one of those jumbo D20s. For when I play ICRPG, so I can use that as the target number for the room, but I haven't got one yet. So yeah, definitely I'm a dice goblin over a dice minimalist. And finally, what mechanic have you not wrapped your head around yet? And for me, this is the Powered by the Apocalypse clocks. Like, I know how they work, I just don't know like when you're supposed to start ticking them over, and that seems like another thing I've got to track. Like, in my mind, I just kind of like throw things out when it's dramatically applicable. So yeah, just the whole concept of clocks, like I just don't, like my brain doesn't really work like that. So yeah, probably the clocks in Powered by the Apocalypse, because I just don't know when to tick them. So that's my D&D tag. I'm going to leave links in the description to the Pod of Many Things guys D&D tags, because they've also done this video. I'm going to tag Uninformed RPG, and I'm going to tag The Outsiders. I want to see your D&D tag videos as well. I have been Ben from the Flickering Torch. Like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and I will see you next time. There's lots of movement going on outside. We'll wait. They're done? They're done. Okay.